Welcome, students, to the first installment of what I'm calling the hot seats. And basically what I want to do is just connect you guys to members in our church and even members of just the body of Christ. Maybe they don't go to our church. Maybe they're a friend of mine, but they have a great story to share. I'm just wanting to get you guys connected and just get you guys some good content on our Instagram. So for our first episode, I've asked Zach to join us. Zach has been coming to our church for a few years now. He teaches one of the Bible study classes on Sunday mornings, and he's just an awesome dude. If you don't know him, you probably know his beard, because I've just been jealous of his beard for many, many years now. I'm always asking him tips, and as you can see, they're not one of them. So I think he's got some secret he's not telling me.
They're like hedges. You just got to keep letting it grow.
I tried that. It's not working for me, so I'll have to do that again. So Zach and I met. It's kind of funny. I got invited by Pastor David. There's a few other guys going. Micah Fry was going to go out on the lake and spend a day on the lake with just a couple guys, and it sounded like an amazing opportunity to me. So I said yes right away. And then on the way, we picked up Zach, and he jumped into the car, and it was the first time I met him. And Zach just has an incredible story of just how the Lord's worked in him and through his life. And I thought it would be really timely for us during this season with COVID-19 that we're in. There's been so much chaos, so much loss just within our own student ministry, with seniors losing their senior year, students with parents who have lost their job, sports athletes who maybe have lost scholarship opportunities. We've had so many just different students going through different things. So I thought it would be awesome just to hear from Zach tonight, or whenever you watch this, and maybe the morning, maybe the nights. But Zach, why don't you just introduce yourself a little bit more, and then we'll get started.
I'm Zach Armstrong. Like Jackson said, I teach one of the Bible studies with someone else in the mornings on Sunday. I have been going to the church for a couple years now, but I've been a Christian almost for as long as I can remember. I don't remember a time when I didn't believe in Jesus, but there are times when I did kind of walk away from the Lord and go my own path. So, but yeah, I used to be a firefighter down in South Florida with Broward Sheriff Fire Rescue, first with Deerfield Beach Fire Rescue, and then the county sheriff took over the city that I was in to try to unify things. So, but I got injured on the job there, and then they retired me out, and we moved from South Florida up here to North Carolina about 4 years ago, and we've been here. Awesome. So I've got a wife and four boys. Right?
Yeah,
absolutely. I will tell you, North Carolina, South Florida is a great place to visit, not a great place to live. North Carolina is a great place to live. We love it here. We don't ever want to leave.
Yeah, most definitely. So you have four boys, just one just joined your family just recently, so that's so exciting.
Yep. He is 11 weeks old, 12 weeks old. So
that's awesome.
We got a house full of crazy boys.
I don't doubt it. So if you guys hear a kid just running by screaming, don't worry. It's just one of his kids trying to stay sane during this time. So you mentioned that you got hurt on the job, and you were had to retire. And so for you guys, students, when I first met Zach, I was 19, I think, at the time, maybe a little bit younger. And he was sharing his testimony while we were in the car and on the boats. And I was just taken aback by just how the Lord was working in him and just his outlook on life. So Zach, why don't you share exactly what happened on the job and just maybe a little bit of the story and all that you had to go through in that time.
Okay. I was I got hired on at Deerfield Beach Fire Rescue as a firefighter, and I think it was my 8th year in working. We were moving a patient out of a bad situation, and the only way to move them was just to move them. And when I picked up the patient to move them, my back went, and I had extreme pain, and I dropped the patient onto the stretcher. I got him to the stretcher, and then I dropped to my knees, and the guy I was working with, he's like, Zach. And he said my face went white, and I just went,
Wow.
And they rolled me over, and I guess I passed out from the pain or something. And I couldn't move my legs when I woke up, actually. And I thought, what is going on here? And I was like, I will move my legs. And I was mentally telling myself, I will move my legs. So I got my legs moving, and then I got up, and I was like, okay, I'm in a ton of pain, but I'm okay. I'll push through, firefighter, my arm's going to fall off, and I'm still going to go fight the fire, So I tried to, I couldn't sit back there with the patient because I couldn't, I had to maintain stability because I was in so much pain. So I was going to drive the rescue truck to the hospital. Well, I couldn't drive. So they had to they had to move me to the back, lay down, and along with the patient. So they transported me and the patient to the hospital. Well, long story short, come to find out, I ruptured my spine. I ruptured the last 2 discs in my spine, L4, L5, L5, S1. They're completely gone. So I had to have surgery about a month and a half later. It was a bilevel spinal fusion. And since that surgery, I've had 5 surgeries, 5 spinal surgeries since then. 3 major ones, 3 completely doing the same thing that they've done before. And then I also have a spinal cord stimulator now, which is a device that I can turn on that sends an electrical signal to my spinal cord. So, but I've had to learn to live with that. They've retired me out, so I'm no longer a firefighter. And since then, it's been many different struggles, but God has really blessed me in and through it.
Yeah. So I think it's safe to say you've been through quite a lot of pain and quite a lot of situations and circumstances you wouldn't have picked if you were able to write your life story.
Right. Looking ahead at things, I definitely would not choose. Standing on the backside of it, saying, "Oh, you can injure your back and have this," I would be like, no.
Similar to probably our students right now, probably wouldn't have picked for COVID-19 to come in and just wreck their sports year, their senior year, just their parents' jobs. They wouldn't have picked that. But you were talking to me just a few minutes ago about how the Lord worked through you and in you during this difficult life circumstance that you went through. So maybe you could just speak to that a little bit. I know you shared a story while you just right after surgery where you just the Lord was moving and working. So you share what you want.
Yeah. Well, kind of like what you were talking about, what happened to me after surgery. There's a lot of times when it's always weird to look back retrospectively on your life. As you get older and you go through more life experiences, you look back and you see, oh, wow, I think that was God, doing that. I think that was God doing that. And so what you were hinting at, the event right after my first surgery, real quickly, they had to cut me all the way across in the front, go in through my front, move everything over to get to my spine and my back. And then they had to do most of the surgery that way, drilling in screws and putting braces and things. And then once that was done, they sewed me up, and then they flipped me over on my stomach, and then they cut me down and they screwed into my back from the backside of me and put rods in to stabilize the fusion and everything. So it was about a 9-hour surgery, I think, is what it was. And so when I came out of that surgery, I still have a lot of the medications going through me, so I'm not horribly bad. But I came out of surgery in the evening, late afternoon, I should say, 5, 6, 7 o'clock. And then that night, I went through just an unbelievable amount of pain. I think the main medication wore off in the late evening. And then I was like calling nurses and doctors. I couldn't talk. I was like, could barely breathe. I was in so much pain. And they were like, we don't know what's going on. Are you hitting your pain button? You know? And I'm like, I'm hitting it, you know, I'm hitting it like every 3 seconds. They're like, well, we'll give you a bolus of medication. So they gave me medication. I was like, oh, and I went to sleep. Hour later, I'm back up, you know? So this went on through the whole night. And they were like, well, we're calling the pain doctor because we don't know what's going on. And before the pain doctor came in the morning, the nurse comes in and he was like, well, I heard you had a bad night, man. And I was like, I was in major pain again. And he was like, man, I don't know what's going on here. He walks around my bed and he's like, what is all this water on the floor? And he goes, oh, dude, you had no pain medication all night. Like it wasn't plugged in. You were hitting the button and the pain medication was going, but it was going on the floor. And I was
sure,
like,
you were ready to punch someone at that point.
my wife was ready to punch somebody at that point. So, but the doctor came in. I mean, I was fuming. I was pretty mad. My wife was pretty mad. And the pain doctor came in and he was like, man, he goes, I don't know anybody who's been able to go through what you went through last night, the pain. And I just was like, yeah, you know, but then it was really weird. What went through my head, what popped into my head, the first thing that popped into my head after he said that was an image of Christ on the cross. And it really like took me back because I thought, well, he did, but he even went through worse. I mean, he was like unrecognizable as a man up there. And the humiliation on top of it and all of that. And then I thought, man, here I am like ready to blow up at somebody. And I couldn't even talk last night. You know, I'm like so angry and overwhelmed with the situation. And I thought, and then I remembered him saying, Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do. He had the kindness and the composure in that state to be able to say that. Like I was ready to bite somebody's head. Like, and it really showed me that I was not God, that I was not Jesus, that I didn't naturally have the ability to respond that way. You see, my natural response was, hey, I'm coming after all of you, you know? So, but yeah, it was, that was one of many perspective changing events that God took me through in my struggle with all the pain that I've had to deal with through this.
That's incredible. And I'm sure if we had just hours and hours, you could just talk about continually how the Lord worked in you through that whole situation. I was just talking to Zach, and he really compared his situation, just his life story, to the story of Job, and how Job in the Bible had so much taken away from him and so many difficult moments in his life, but yet he grew closer to the Lord in those times. And Zach, I think you feel similar to that. Just that the Lord was working in everything. Maybe you could talk just a little bit of how you grew closer to the Lord because of what you went through.
Yeah. Well, a lot of times we don't think, like you hinted at earlier, would you have chosen this for your life? You know, and standing on that side of the pain, not having gone through it yet, and looking at that just with my own eyes, I would have said, no. In no way, shape, or form.
Like any sane person would,
right? Exactly, you know? But standing on this side of it, I honestly, and God knows how true this is, I would go through 10 times worse pain to be 10 times closer to him, because he has shown me and taught me more about him and who he is and what he's accomplished for me, and more about myself, and having a realistic view of myself and reality. that it has given me, and it has removed fear from me. I mean, I still feel afraid sometimes, but there's a small amount of things that I'm afraid of. It's given me confidence. It's given me joy in the midst of chaos and horrible situations, because the perspective is not a fear perspective.
Yeah.
The perspective is I know the Lord will be glorified out of this, and I know I'll see it. And I am always trying to figure out, how can God be glorified out of this horrible situation?
Mm-hmm.
So, like, for instance, my being injured, um, I'm a firefighter. You know, I can go through a brick wall with my own hands. You know, nothing can stop me.
Yeah.
You know, I'm built to go into chaos and solve it. You know, that's just how I function. That's what I was trained for, and to overcome it. You know, it's kind of like military. You know, it's like you go into the fight and you're going to come out victorious. You know,
Mm-hmm.
so when I injured my back, even specifically as a man, just my manhood a lot was taken from me. What I thought was manhood,
Mm-hmm.
you know, being tough and strong, and, you know, I can solve anything, I can do anything, you know.
Mm-hmm.
So that was removed from me. My ability to provide for my family, you know, was potentially taken away from me, you know. So there was that fear. There was, how am I going to be able to be a husband to my wife? How am I going to be able to be a dad to my kids? You know,
Mm-hmm.
what is my life going to look like from now on? You know, am I going to be in a wheelchair a year? You know, so there was a lot of all these, like, your imagination can like take you in crazy places
Mm-hmm.
and make you very afraid of not knowing the outcome, you know?
Yeah.
And what God took me through in that journey of all those fears was, he showed me who he was, and he showed me that, and really, I can't say that I gained this on my own. God really took me through this, and it was really learning to submit to the will of God.
Mm-hmm.
And understanding, like in Romans 8:28, that all things work for the good of those who are called and love the Lord. And I don't know exactly how that scripture is, because I don't have it memorized, but he showed me that all things work for our good.
Mm.
And that thought was provoked to me by him when I was, for the millionth time, in prayer,
Mm-hmm.
in the middle of the night. Like, I would wake up in the middle of the night all the time in so much pain that, you know, I couldn't bear it. And even after surgery, and I would get down on my knees and I would pray, Lord, please take this from me.
Mm-hmm.
Please take this pain from me. Like, what are you doing? Why are you not taking this from me? Why are you not solving this problem?
Mm-hmm.
You know, do you love me? Do you, I mean, that was even coming into my head. Like, why are you not hearing me? You know? And I realized he brought, again, like right out of my surgery, that thought of Christ on the cross. He brought again this thought of, well, would you be here on your knees, clinging to me desperately, if you weren't in pain? And you can't lie to God, because he knows the truth. He knows the answer before he asks it. You know?
Yeah.
And the honesty of my heart, I said, no, you know, I wouldn't be here. And I realized, wow, you know, I'm praying for you to take away the thing that's driving me to you. You haven't taken it away, no matter how many times I've asked. And you've shown me through these moments, like, what you've accomplished, like Christ on the cross there. He was able to say, Father, forgive them, for you know not what they do, for they know not what they do. And you've shown me all these like little glimpses of Christ, you know, that I wouldn't have had outside of this pain.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I've learned something. Like, there's an experiential learning. You can read about building a boat, or you can read about, fixing a car. You can read about, doing something. But until you do it, you don't go through the pain and the learning process of like, gosh, I totally did that wrong. The frustration of it, Well, he showed me and kind of brought to memory all those things. And I thought, Lord, if you're not going to take this pain from me and you're teaching me who you are in and through it, then I want to see more.
Mm.
Don't take this pain from me, but in this pain and in this uncertainty and in this emotional distress and all of this, show me who you are. Show me what you accomplished for me. Show me how I am not Christ and you are the God who created all things. It's he says he hasn't given us a spirit of fear, but he's given us a spirit of love and of courage, and the proper response to fear is courage.
Yeah. And
he's given us that because of who Christ is and what he's accomplished for us. And we know that this is his plan. This is not a surprise. And that he's not going to be like, oh no, what do we do now? He's going, hey, no, this is part of my plan. And if I could have the perspective now, when you asked me the question earlier, would I have chosen this on the other side of the injury, of the pain, looking down the corridor of time, saying, looking down that hall at all those doors that I had to go in and go out of in pain, would I have chosen that? And I would have said, heck no. But on this side, at the end of the hallway, seeing all those doors that have been shut, and now the door that's open, being able to see who Christ is and what he's accomplished for me, and the confidence that I have now in situations of chaos and stress and uncertainty, and the confidence I have now that God has given me. Not that I've like, oh, I've done this, look at me. It's God has built that faith in me to have confidence in him, to say, hey, I know I feel scared, and that's okay. That's normal. That's a normal response, to feel scared and what am I going to do and how's this going to work? But there is also an expectation of us to then turn to the Lord and say, hey, I'm terrified. I don't know what's going to happen, and I have no idea how to do this, but I know this is part of your plan, God, and I want what you want more than what I think should happen. And that has been the biggest transformation for me to be able to say, God, this is what I pray. I want this. I want that. I want this. I want that. I want this to happen. I want this job. I want to accomplish this. I want to be able to do that. But for me to then lay those requests down at the foot of the Lord and say, but God, you've shown me that I don't know everything. You've shown me that a lot of times my ideas are really bad ideas. And I've learned from experience that your ideas are the best. And I want what your plan is more so than I want what my plan is. Because I trust your plan better than I trust my plan. And I will tell you that if there's one thing that I could share with anybody, is to pray that God gives you that type of perspective, because it is life-changing. Because no matter what situation you're in, no matter how horrible it may seem, the confidence is not in the outcome. The confidence is in the Lord's outcome. You see?
Yeah.
And you can, think about this. There's some people that believe, oh, God's in control of everything. There's some people that say God's not in control of everything. Okay, let me ask you a hypothetical question. Which way would you rather have it? God in control of everything, or are you in control of everything?
It was definitely God. I hope everyone answers that. Yeah.
Yeah, you know, and that's kind of the perspective of like, God, I'm confident that you're in control of everything, you know, but sometimes I feel like I have control of things, and I want to make the best decision because I want to go your way, because I know I'm going to be safe that way. And I know that you love me, and I know that you're going to look out for me in the direction that I go with you. Now, if I go on my own, you're not there to look out for me. I'm
Mm-hmm.
there by myself to look out for myself. And I need you to look out for me because I screw up.
That's incredible. So
So,
as you were talking, it made me think. So it's kind of funny. Before COVID-19 happened, we in the youth group were studying through the book of Jonah, and one of the nights we talked about how sometimes God does send storms our way. Like
yeah,
Jonah, he went through a storm. He was in the belly of a fish. Sometimes God sends these circumstances our way to bring us closer to Him, and it almost
yeah,
sounds like. And not saying that God causes all evil things, or not to
yeah,
get in that
no,
debate, but
yeah,
there was a situation that came your way, and it was used for good to bring you back to the Lord and to bring you
yeah,
closer to the Lord. And right now, really, the whole world is in a situation right now. Again, not saying God caused or didn't cause
yeah,
COVID-19, but right
absolutely.
now we are in a situation that is not good, that we wouldn't have picked beforehand. But there is this opportunity for our students, for our church, and just for any Christian to grow
Yeah,
closer to God and to begin to try to see it as Zach was seeing it, as an opportunity to grow closer to the Lord and to glorify Him and to want His will to be done. So I think for students, if they hear anything from this, look at COVID-19. Everything's out of your control, just like it was. Zach had no control after he ruptured his back, and
yeah,
he was just really sitting there, not able to do anything. And we find ourselves in a similar situation, not able to control whether we go back to school or not, not able to control whether a parent keeps their job or not. And all of this, we can rest in the God who is in control and who
yeah,
is working all things for our good and for His glory. I
yeah,
think that's just so comforting. And to hear Zach's story almost sounds like a Bible story, right? Like we think of the story of Joseph and how he was sold into slavery by his own
yeah.
family, but then ultimately God worked and used it for good. It's like we get to see a physical example of that in
Well,
that, just the
yeah,
Lord's
he
word. And
came to the same realization, and that's the thing is, you read the stories of the Bible, and it's not so much imagining, you know, gosh, what did he go through? It's finding yourself in those stories, you know, finding, you know, ways to connect with those stories, and it's actually knowing the stories, though. You know, we can know about Moses, we can know about Noah, we can know about, you know, the fall, Adam and Eve, you know, but do we really know those stories? Do we know the details of those stories? And those are important. You know, it may seem very boring, but there are details in those stories that are so beautiful. I mean, take, for example, sorry, Jackson, I'm kind of going off, so, but
no,
this will
you're
be real
fine.
quick.
This is awesome.
Take, for example, Adam and Eve and the fall of man. Okay. The details of that story, we know, oh, she took the apple, she ate it, and then, you know, she gave it to Adam and he ate it, and, you know, the fall of man or whatever. But when you think about that story, what did she do? She took, the verbs of that story are take, eat, and she gave. Now think of the verbs of the Last Supper. The fall of man, she took, she ate, and she gave, and he ate. Okay? But at the Last Supper, Jesus says what? Take, eat, and he gave. So he's taking the verbs of our fall and he's making them the verbs of our redemption.
Mm.
And when we eat of that tree, which is his cross, you know, the fruit of his tree is the blood and the bread, the blood and the wine. When we ate of the fruit in the garden, it was death. But when we eat of the fruit of the tree of life, and Jesus refers to himself as the tree of life.
Mm-hmm.
When we eat of that tree, what is the result? You know, it's
Yeah.
everlasting life. So there's details in these stories that are so amazing and beautiful that we miss them altogether. You know, when we connect the old stories, the Old Testament stories, to the New Testament stories, and it shows us a different perspective on how communion even is, you know.
Yeah.
There's a beauty in things, you know. It's like a piece of art, you know, or it's like something where you see and you're like, whoa, check that out. Somebody does some like amazing, like, you know, motorcycle flip or something, like dirt biking or something, you know what I mean? Or they're shooting at the range and they shoot like 1,000 yards and they hit bullseye. It's like, wow, you know.
Yeah,
It's like
amazing.
that kind of thing, you know. There's like little things that make us stand in awe, and there's so much of that in the Old Testament. So don't
Most
discount
definitely.
reading the Old Testament.
Most definitely. He's kind of plugging his Sunday or his Bible study class right now, because that's what they're working through. I would say if there's two things for you students just to walk away with, it's just know that the Lord can work through this time, just like he worked through Zach's time. And then also use this time to get in the Word, right? And let the Bible really speak to you in this time. I remember I had a good brother in Christ in high school who went through a really, really bad situation. And he was like, as he was going through that, he really said, man, the scripture is becoming more real to me now that I'm going through these bad times. So let scripture become real to you guys during this COVID-19 season. Zach, I got to say, this was awesome. This was just hopefully beneficial to our students, but if it wasn't, it was beneficial to me. So I'm super thankful for this and just excited to see how the Lord's going to use your story to impact our students. Students, if you are watching, thank you for watching. Thank you for joining the first episode of The Hot Seat. I hope to bring many more of these for you guys, just so you can just grow from these and love the Lord more afterwards. Zach, stay safe. I hope your family stays safe, stay well, and we're looking forward to seeing you possibly at a drive-in service this Sunday, right?
This Sunday, man.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Well, it was good talking to you, and students, it was good having you. We will see you.